slide that we're going to do, we're going to show you guys a comparison. So it looks like we got G Money, Garrett Hatfield from Huntington Beach. So what's up, G Money? Been following you a lot on LinkedIn, seeing all the stuff you've been posting, doing a great job there. Great product and brand awareness and getting your face out there for everybody to see.
Yeah, and Garrett, we're working on the canvases for you. I know you reached out to me this week. We talked this week, so let's definitely. I'll circle back and get our designers to get that to you hopefully by today.
Okay, again, we are we'll get started here in just a couple minutes to allow people to come in. We actually had quite a few people register. Looks like it's going to be a topic that's going to be pretty popular. If you're just joining us, make sure that you chime in the chat section who you are, where you're from, so that we can officially welcome you to the webinar. We will be sending out a recording along with the slide deck to all the attendees as well, so that you can use it for future reference. But I think it's going to be a really eye-opening webinar. We will kind of talk a little bit about the analytics that we're very proud of for 2020 and what we brought to the table as a digital marketing company for the restoration companies that we work with. But you're also going to find out, and we hope if you don't have answers to these questions, then you're on the right webinar to be able to figure this out. So it looks like we have Lori Sesko, ServPro West Jordan, Utah. So how are you guys doing? Dylan Beach with ServPro St. Charles, Missouri. Nice to see you and nice to meet you, Dylan. You got John Lawrence, ServPro and forgive me, is that Yamhill or Yamhill and Tillamook counties? I may have overthought that, but I'm sure John will correct me if that's the case. And again, we'll get started here in just a couple minutes. We got Katie Scalf, ServPro of East Central Cincinnati and West Hamilton, Oxford. Thanks for joining us.
This webinar is brought to you by Diet Coke, which I can't see. It's going.
It's brought to you by Rain Energy Drinks.
Diet Coke is the main sponsor, Eddie.
You know what? We'll just let them fight it out. I really don't care. You drink your Diet Coke, drink my Rain. We'll call it a day.
Diet Coke is cool and fresh and beverage on a hot summer day.
Looks like we've got Brady Deaton with Paul Davis. He's on board, so thanks for joining us, Brady. And just a couple more minutes, we'll get started. Sean, you need to enable my screen sharing.
We'll do that in just a second. I got a very important poll I'm going to go ahead and put back up. If you haven't made your answer for a percentage of calls that you're currently seeing closed, go ahead and mark that now. And we're going to get another very important poll up in just a second.
Okay, guys, again, if you're just joining us, like I said, we're getting ready to get started here about at 11:05. We will make sure you tell us who you are and where you're from. And she probably won't chime in, but one of my very good friends, Tara Van Winkle from ServPro San Diego, I see she joined. So. Did you enable my screen sharing? No?
Yep, just a second. We're going to go ahead and put up a very important poll real quick. If you guys can go ahead and fill this out.
Oh, God.
Pepsi or Coke? This has nothing to do with this webinar. We just want to kind of fill out the room and who we're talking to today.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started as people chime in. So first off, welcome to Tier Level Webinar. You know, we're super excited to be able to do these things for you guys because we do get a lot of people that join, but more importantly, the feedback and the takeaways remember that this is also too peer-led. Sean and I don't ever proclaim to have all of the answers. So if you guys have suggestions, we welcome those, because we firmly believe that iron sharpens iron, and that the people on this call can bring just as much to the table. So I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Eddie Green. I'm the Vice President of Sales for Tier Level Digital Marketing. And I've been with the company, it'll be 2 years, December 31st, after being a Director of Business Development for a top 20 ServPro franchise. So Sean and I just talked about my 2-year anniversary. He's going to be firing me before December 31st. So anyway, pleasure to meet you guys if I have not met you previously. And I'll turn it over to Sean.
All right, I'm Sean Michael Lewis. I'm the founder, CEO of Tier Level Digital Marketing. We're very excited today to talk about this topic of how to increase call volume conversion. We recently just sent out to our clients an ROI report that really kind of articulates, like at a minimal level, like what the ROI is from digital marketing. And what we've learned is, you know, even at lower conversion rates of 50% from the direct calls from Google My Business, and even 10% of website traffic, that the revenue was in the millions of dollars, especially with the clients that have been with us longer. But what those numbers might sound astounding and extremely attractive, but what I'm more focused on is how do we take those numbers from 10 to 15 to 10 to 20 to 30, 40% and increase that in incremental margin, because that's really where the opportunity is. I mean, if you're just trying to make the phone ring more and more and more, but you're not closing what you currently have, it kind of defeats the purpose of increasing that volume. So we really want to talk about the importance, because this is really a foundation that's going to increase your revenue for 2021 and make you have the best year ever. So Eddie, I'm gonna go ahead and let you get started. If you guys have any questions, feel free to put it in the comment box, chat box, and we'll get to those at least by the end of this webinar as well.
Absolutely. So one thing that we do want to say is that, you know, answering the phone is an art form. You know, the customers, you don't have all of the nonverbal communication to be able to gauge your customer by. It uses a lot of active listening. So this doesn't just necessarily apply to a call coming in from Google My Business. It could be the call that you receive in the middle of the night because a sprinkler head has went off, and the way you handle and interact with that customer could potentially cost you a relationship. You know, how engaged you are, how much you're actively listening, how empathetic you are, things like that. But Sean brought up a very interesting topic, which is we're going to talk about a conversion example right out of the gate about, you know, because your phone is ringing off the hook, it's what you do with those calls that's going to matter most. And so if you're only converting 10% and you're getting 100 calls, you're not making as much money as if you were converting more. So basically, we want to talk about the money that we have uncovered that is being left on the table by doing stealth calls to facilities and finding out that the admin teams really are not fielding these calls correctly. The people that are answering the phones, it could be in the estimation side and not asking for the business. We're going to address all of that and how to be more effective, because again, it's the execution of everything that you do that makes you successful. It's not the ideas. The ideas, if they're just left on the table, are just ideas. So it is an execution is hard work. So some of you guys may come away from here going, wow, I don't know that I have what it takes to be able to make this happen. I hope that's not the case, but we're going to present it to you anyway. So how much money are you guys leaving on the table? And it all starts with the way you say hello. Well, let's look at a conversion example. So we're just going to use round numbers. 100 calls come in to your facility. So from Google My Business, wherever they come from, you should know where that call generated from. Let's just start there. If you're not training your staff on where that call came from, how in the world are you finding out where your ROI is on the marketing dollars that you spent? Maybe you're running television advertising. Maybe you're doing radios. Maybe you're running banner ads. Maybe you're using a digital marketing company like Tier Level. Well, if you don't know how to justify your ROI, you're going to look at those marketing dollars as being a bleed. And so there's no justification. So we're going to teach you as we walk through here how to not only find where these calls come from, but how to convert them into money. So if you look at this example, first off, 100 calls come in, you only convert 10 of those. So only 10 of those calls turn into what the residential average invoice is right now for a water loss is $2,500. Okay, could be more, could be less. You could be commercially centric. That's an average by industry standard of $7,800. So you can see how that can change. But let's just say it's a residential job. 10 calls go to a residential job at the industry average of $2,500. You've generated $25,000 in additional revenue that month. I'm going to tell you, and Sean will echo this sentiment, we don't cost $25,000 for our services. So you've already made money using digital marketing. But what would happen if you taught your people to convert at 70%? If they converted at 70%, which is the industry average, is 70% for people that have great admin teams that are not using call centers to answer the phone, but these people are good on the phones. They convert an average of 70%. That's an average of $175,000 of additional revenue in a month. So 25, an additional 150 grand. And that's providing that every invoice was $2,500, the industry average. So it makes that much of a difference. The biggest problem is, and I'm going to let Sean talk a little bit about this before we go to the next slide, is when we talk to owners, they don't know. If we ask them, how many calls did you get from Google and how much was the average invoice? The answer is, I don't know. Sean, can you expand on that?
Yeah, and a lot of it goes back to the importance of really understanding your analytics. So that can be everything from going through QuickBooks and looking at the total residential water jobs, total commercial water jobs, and really kind of computating, what that looks like. How many jobs did you do for the previous year? How did that relate to the number of calls that people hit call now? How many of those were referrals or people that you've worked with before or directly brought in by your sales team? It's very important that you understand all these micro analytics. And I know it might sound overwhelming, but if you want to really get a grip on your business, you have to understand the numbers. You have to understand that because like Eddie said, when you start going from 10% conversion to 20 to 30, you're seeing incremental revenue gain. And that really changes the game of everything. That's what makes your company successful. So it's very important that if you notice, and you know what, no matter where you are, I'm pretty certain that nobody's got 100% close rate just from cold calls or direct leads coming from the internet or wherever. So, this is always an opportunity, no matter, even if you're in the 80s, 90%, how do you get that 5% more? Because that revenue opportunity is already sitting right in front of you and ready to grab. You just have to step up and make sure you're providing the training and resources for those people that are taking care of that for you.
Right. And to answer Sean's question, and those are great points, it's like, how do you get that additional 5% and get that needle moving forward? It's all going to start with the person on the other end of the phone. How trained, how adept are they at answering the phone, at the art of the phone call, controlling the call, and the first impression they get with the customer? So many people in this industry want to be viewed as the experts, but they refuse to be the expert. And, it all starts with your admin team, which in my opinion is a very neglected position within the organization. Sean and I were blessed to have an exceptional administrative assistant that was on the phones, was great with customers, fantastic at being able to control the phone call and get the necessary resources that they needed to get somebody in front of the problem. But if you take a look and you were to look at your administrative team right now and you were to just sit outside their door and listen to the way they answer the phone on a scale of 1 to 10, really how engaged, how enthusiastic, how personable, and how empathetic does your admin staff sound? Or do they just sound like that $10, $11, $12 an hour employee that they're paid to be? Is it just a job, or are they actively engaged in every single phone call? And it is super, super important that first impression, that whenever they get there, they are the first superhero that the customer gets to encounter. The customers aren't calling your franchises or your locations because they're bored and they don't have anything better to do. They have a problem, and somebody is going to do that work. Why should it not be you? And so you have to reemphasize how important the administrative people are to your organization. In fact, they're one of the most important cogs in the entire wheel, because they are the brand ambassador first impression that the customer gets when they call whenever they call your location. And if they drop the ball, it already leaves a bad taste in the mouth for the rest of the experience. Sean, you have any thoughts on that?
No, I absolutely agree with that, Eddie, 100%. I mean, it is really just getting to the point where you have to make sure the personality and the phone is everything. I mean, if somebody picks up the phone, like, hey, thank you for calling XYZ Restoration Company. How can I help you today? There's just no immediate need. Somebody calls and they're crying on the other end of the line, and they're like, I just lost everything in a fire, my kids' toys, teddy bears, everything. And you're sitting there like making it too business and not as personal to understanding their situation. It can cause a lot of conflict and cause them to be really turned off. So you have to really understand the emotion, especially in the restoration side. But, like we have some people on here from finance and different sectors of the industry. Your client is calling you for some reason, or potential client. You have to understand, you need to ask the right question and show that you truly care, which goes back to a lot of other topics that we do on Outcare, Out-Educate. And if you can't give that vibe and that articulation on the phone, you're going to lose a lot of potential customers. So it's very important to understand that tone, that personality, every bit of that matters for getting a higher conversion rate.
Yeah, and I think that, to expand a little bit on that, I think that in the restoration industry, we get desensitized to people's problems. We see so much of it every day. If you get a phone call, you're more commercially centric and it's $1 million loss, the entire location gets excited about things like that. But whenever the little old lady calls because, she's got a small leak from her hot water tank or toilet supply line or something like that, and we try to quantify the fact that it's not that big of a deal. Well, what you have to understand is that to the person on the other end of the line, it's a very big deal to them. And I think that we lose that empathetic approach because we deal with this in so many jobs. I know that I consult and Sean consults with franchises that are doing 300 plus jobs a month, and in freeze events and things like that, that can double. And because of that, I think due to all of that exposure to the smaller problems, we just become desensitized to it, and we turn off that empathy meter, and that turns the customer off. It's a big deal to the customer on the other end of the line. It needs to be treated as such, and we need to let them know that they've made the right phone call because it's something that we can take care of. So let's take a look at how one of the things that we do is that we get into very panicked situations. And if you respond in a very panicked manner, your volume goes up, you can tell that your stress level has come up, then the customer is actually controlling that call. Control of the call is really the key to getting all the information that you have. So again, if you are going to be viewed as an expert, be the expert. The customer is calling you because they have a problem and you need to be the solution. So they have called you for a specific reason. Sometimes it takes some discovery to be able to get down to the the brass tacks of what they actually need from you. But if you will move from just being someone who answers the phone to answer questions to solutions-based, consultative approach, it is going to make all the difference in the world to the customer. Sean just said it. The mantra that we live by is Outcare, Out-Educate. Sean, why don't you expand a little bit on what that means? It's one thing for us to say Outcare, Out-Educate, but explain what that truly means to people.
All right, so everybody on this call, you have some responsibility in your business. So if you're a restoration company or you're in financial services or whatever you do, when you think of a business that you do business with, what really attracts you to that business? A lot of times it might just be a product and you order it on Amazon, but let's just say, like, for instance, myself and Eddie are very passionate about the music industry, and we like to buy music gear, from guitars to recording devices to podcast equipment and things like that. One thing that really has changed that industry is a company called Sweetwater.com. And many of you probably remember companies like the Car Center, Sam Ash. They have really gone by the wayside where they filed bankruptcy and shut down stores, which these were some of the biggest print catalog companies, Musician Friend back in the day, if any of you are musicians and have heard of that. But what you have to really understand is, why did Sweetwater succeed? Especially in a pandemic year, their sales have been going through the roof, where you can place an order and it actually takes time for them to get back to you. But they adopted a model where when you go to their website, almost every product has a video review. It provides a walkthrough of why you should buy the equipment. When you call, you get a dedicated person on the phone that will either talk you out of something you want for something better, something different, maybe something more cost effective, depending on what the end results are. That same mentality needs to be taken in the restoration industry, and it's not. And the way that happens is, most of you sitting on this call have experience in this industry. Some might have more than others. How do you articulate that? Are you using podcasts? Are you using your phone, your mobile phone, to take videos, take pictures, explain situations, talk about the process of what to do if you have a loss until help arrives, what to do during the loss, what to do after, how to document those things, how to cover yourself to minimize liability and risk? What are all these things that you can be providing? Think about your commercial client. What can you can't sell them anything unless you're doing general cleaning, COVID cleaning, or something like that. But what can you offer them to help them be better prepared to prevent water and fire? And you're like, why would we do that? Because this is the way you build trust. This is why when that small or major water loss or fire happens, or they discover mold in their business, they're going to call you because you provide so much consistent education. And that's what it's about. That's where the internet, beyond the routine day-to-day posting and branding and things like that, the more you put yourself out there, that's when people are going to start calling you direct and saying, hey, is Garrett, is Eddie, is so-and-so available? Because I have a question and I don't know what to do. Think about this. When you start providing on-site disaster planning, preparing plans and things like that, you're getting to walk through their building, go through every nook and cranny, every corner, every shutoff valve, explain that process, mark that stuff up with your brand, and it makes a huge difference. It's not just doing it to check off some routine activity. What are you doing to show you truly give a shit and care about your client? Because actually truly giving a shit and just doing it through the motions are two different things. And people have a very strong BS radar, especially with the rise of social media. Living in the year 2020, a lot of people are home, they're glued to their phones, they're addicted to these platforms. But what are you doing that's authentic? Same thing relates back to the initial phone call. Is your staff educational? Are they truly caring? Do they actually care about the situation? I mean, a good person on the phone, when they hang up that phone, they should feel emotionally drained, emotionally connected to the person on the other line of that phone to make a positive impact with that.
Totally agree with that. People that are great on the phones are hard to come by, because the way that technology has moved is everything is done through email and texting, and it's really hard to be able to emphasize any type of emotive process through that. In fact, how many times have you been misunderstood whenever you've sent out a text or an email and you think the other person on the other end of the line's mad at you, because of the way that they responded? Well, you have the power of inflection and the power of active listening whenever you're controlling the phone call. But, I want you to understand that as a restoration professional, you have to create relationships that escalate you into the echelon of their significant other, their pastor, their mom, their dad, that kind of presence of mind that in an emergency situation, you are on the forefront of their mind. That takes a lot of passion, a lot of work, a lot of caring, a lot of empathy to get into that echelon thought pattern of, in an emergency situation, Sean or Brady or whoever, Garrett or whoever, Steve is on this call, is the first person they think of that can fix their problem. So coming back to how you control the call, again, you are the subject matter expert. Be the expert. Let the customer know that you've got this, which moves us into the next slide. Phrases that you can use to, and you have to forgive me, I misspelled that, to assist you in controlling the call, is drop your tone of voice to drop their excitability. Mr. or Mrs. or Ms., you know, I want you to understand you've made the right call for the problem that you're describing. In order to assist you in the best way possible, I need to gather a few pieces of information from you. So now at this point, you've set the precedent. You have said this, you know, you've made the right call. This is what I need to do. You can even say things like, look, hold on just a second. I know what you're going through. This is not anything foreign to us. Just take a big, deep breath for me, okay? Because I can take care of you, okay? It is using that positive assumptive approach to let them know you've got this. In order for me to give you the most accurate answers possible, I have to get some information first. You need to lead the customer where you want them to go. So the goal of each call, every single phone call, is that comes into the facility is to get somebody out in front of the customer to get eyes on the problem. Why? Why do we need that to happen? Because we all know that the customer's not going to be able to articulate the science of what we need to see. They can say, my dishwasher leaked and Sean just dealt with this. My dishwasher leaked, I mopped it up. It's not the water that you don't, it's the water you don't see that can make your house sick. It's the water under the island, behind the toe kicks on the cabinet that's wicked up the insulation in the wall that the customer cannot articulate that. So 99% of the time, the job is actually bigger than what the customer is telling you. And if you're trying to give them answers and quantify that on the phone, you are doing the customer a disservice. You need to get somebody out there to see it so that they can give you an accurate description and accurate pricing of what's going on. That's the only way that's going to work. There's no way that you can take what a customer tells you and be able to give them pricing over the phone because you haven't went out there with your FLIR, you haven't went out there with your moisture meter, you haven't went out there with your carpet probe, and you have not effectively moisture mapped or taken a look and scoped the fire or looked and gotten to the mold that you can't see, or maybe it's a hoarder situation, maybe it's a bio issue. You are the professional, so it's your job to get them to an estimator to get out there to give an accurate scope on that. So case in point, Sean just dealt with this. It was a dishwasher leak, and he found more water. So, you know, Sean, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so, you know, my personal girlfriend just built a new house, and I got a call this week from her directly because obviously she knows I worked in the industry. And I went over there, and there's water leaking, and it's actually coming out of near an electrical outlet on an island in her kitchen. Well, it turns out what it was is the electrician, when they were drilling a reset box or something into the side of the cabinet, drilled right into the dishwasher, creating a microscopic hole that was slowly leaking water. So we pulled that out. The plumbers came, you know, but it was just walking through the process. It was the first thing I had to educate her on. Was, you know, did you shut the water off? It was the first thing I did when I arrived at her house. And, you know, these are some of the things that start to show the process that you actually know what you're talking about. I just put a poll up right now because I find this very important. Do you even have a system for your business in place for quality control with your phone staff? I mean, do you evaluate? Do you listen to recordings? Because you can't sit there and listen to everything that you do. And believe it or not, 56% of you on this call today are saying something we need to do for 2021. 22% said no, nothing at all. And only 22% said yes, we have a system. If you are on this call and you have a system in place, feel free to share how you're currently monitoring that. If you're using phone recording or you're recording those calls that are coming in so you can go back and improve on that. This is not to get anybody in trouble and say, oh, you suck, you're horrible at this. This is to kind of document and see where can we improve? What do we need to provide for our phone staff to get better? One thing that drives me crazy for all of you, and I know this will get me in trouble on the corporate level with big box restoration companies. I know there's a lot of ServPros on here, but you know, a lot of you have a parent company that has a centralized call center for those 1-800 calls that come in. I know pretty much every big box company has that. And then you have your local number. One thing that really scares me about that after working in that environment is, you know, these are very high turnover positions like any other call center. And it's something, if there are any individuals from corporate infrastructures on here, are they putting these things in place? They might say they have them, but, when you're talking about high turnover and you're hiring $10 an hour type people, what do you expect to get? I mean, these are people calling in with potentially thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe even $1 million remediation construction type job. And we've got a $10 an hour person that has no industry experience just to try to take information and then dispatch it. I can tell you right now, in the world that we live in, if that call gets delayed and they come in and all they feel like they give is their name and number and somebody's going to call back, I guarantee you they're calling somebody else on Google or wherever they're getting their information from to find somebody that can give them a true answer right away. So the whole element of call centers and things like that are driving people away. This is not 1992, 1981, where people are looking up the phone book and they don't have access to information. If you don't get an immediate answer when you call someone, that consumer is going to call somebody else. And that's the truth. Right. Many of you don't want to hear that. Many of you feel like, oh, I bought into a franchise system. If you're relying on that, you would be shocked how much business you're losing on a year-over-year basis. Take as much of that in control as you can. Dominate your team. If you are part of a corporate infrastructure, ask them, what are they doing? What are they doing to enhance that improvement? What are they doing to better capture and educate the people on the phone to get higher quality conversion for your business?
Well, you want a true eye-opening experience, just make a phone call to the call center yourself. And try to get them to engage in any type of conversation that is going to be on the technical side. And you're going to find out that they are doing your customers a disservice. Remember, the people that are calling you are calling with an emergency of some sort. So, and somebody's going to do that work, and based upon how that call is handled, it could be you or it could be your competitor. So, if you want to take and just look at raw data analytics, and it's not putting ServPro on the spot, it's just, I know this analytic, but ServPro, as big as they are, only has 6% of the overall mitigation market share nationally, even as big as they are. So 94% of mitigation work is being done by somebody else. And that's a company with 1,800 locations across the United States. So the customers may or may not be finding what they want when they call your facility, especially if they call a call center. And I can't agree more with Sean that $10 an hour employee at a call center has zero vested interest in your success. They are just there to do a job. They're just there to capture some data and try to get it over. And I guarantee you, when you call that customer back, it's already too late. So I can't echo that sentiment anymore. So let's talk about data capture, because I made about 100 stealth calls this year to facilities and recorded them. And I'm sad to say that out of the 100 phone calls that I made to facilities around the United States, only 2 phone calls resulted in getting all the information that they needed to potentially convert that into a job. 2. That's it. 98 calls, balls were dropped. And whenever I was being the person on the other end of the line, I was either calling from a very affluent housing location, multi-million-dollar homes, or I was calling as a commercial facilities manager. So these jobs that I was representing and these stealth calls could have potentially been $1 million plus. So in my opinion, $98 million got left on the table. Okay, that's a horrible statistic. So your phone staff should be trained that they need to always get on every phone call. First off, be the empathetic, be the person, listen, I need to know, Mr. or Mrs. Smith, that you are safe, that you are not in harm's way right now. That should be the first question out of their mouth. The second thing is, what is the customer name? What's their phone number? What's the address of the loss? What type of loss is it? When did it occur? And what is the time frame to get somebody to get eyes on the problem? Okay. If you ask this in a 20 questions type mentality, you're not going to get a good response. Okay. You have to calm the customer down and allow them to know you need this information so that you can take care of them. Okay. I know that right now you're in an emergency situation and we can fix that. Okay. But in order for me to do so, I just got to get a couple pieces of information from you in case we get disconnected, because I want to make sure that we are the company that takes care of you. You made the right call and the right decision by calling us. Okay. So get that data capture. You should have that on every call. 98 of those 100 calls did not get half of this, if any of it. So I use this analogy a lot. It's not what you say, but it's how you say it. I encourage your phone people to have a mirror at their desk. The mirror makes all the difference in the world. It sounds cheesy, but I promise you, if you can see your countenance on your face, you'll change it. If the customer calls and they've just interrupted your admin's game of Candy Crush or Solitaire or Mahjong tiles or whatever it is, they're going to hear that on the phone. And I need the administrative people. I need you as sales professionals. I need you as owners to ask yourself at the end of every phone call you take, would I have wanted to talk to me based on the way that I sounded? Would I have been satisfied as a consumer with the answers and the interaction that I was provided with? So I always use these 3 words. I always say it's not what you say, but how you say it. And I'm going to say 3 words that are going to have 4 very different meanings. And the words are, I love you. So if I just say I love you, it's just a matter of fact statement that just, it is what it is. I love you. I don't like you. I don't this, but I love you. It's just a matter of fact. But what if I change the emphasis to the word I, and I say, I love you? Now all of a sudden it's very personal. It is not Sean, not anyone else that's in the room, but me. I love you. But if I change the emphasis to the word love and I say, I love you, then all of a sudden it becomes a lot more powerful. It is, I want you to fully understand the power of the word love that I'm using. And then if I change it to you, I love you, it's very personal and specific. I love you, nobody else around you. I just want you to understand that I love you and only you. So I've said 3 words that have 4 very distinct meanings, and those could all come down to the way that you ask, how are you today? Or how can I help you? If you say, hi, this is so-and-so with ABC Restoration, how can I help you? You sound very disinterested. You sound like I have just interrupted something that is more important than this phone call. But if you say, hi, my name's Eddie. I'm with ABC Restoration. How can I help you today? It sounds a whole lot more personable. I said the same thing. I just said it differently. And when you ask and you take the time, you want to see how the power of that at work, at active listening, and it's not what you say, but how you say it. Next time you go out to eat and the waitress asks, how are you doing? Just tell them you're not doing well at all. I'm terrible. Watch how many times the waitress goes, oh, okay, great. What can I get you to drink? Because they're not engaged. You've just told them you're terrible. You just told them you're awful. And it just blew right by them. How often is your administrative staff doing that? It's costing you hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars every year. Who knows if that was $1 million phone call that they just blew by? Sean, you have anything for that?
No, you're right on, Eddie.
Okay. So it is, and here's the other thing. So here's what's going to scare everyone to death on the administrative side. Closing is a sales technique. I'm not a salesperson. Well, guess what? Yes, you are. Everybody in your company is a salesperson in some capacity. And if you don't ask for the business, if you don't lead the customer in the direction that you need them to go, they're not going to give it to you. If you just capture the data and you don't say, when can we get somebody out there, and increase the urgency of the problem because you're the subject matter expert and you know what needs to happen, the customer's not going to volunteer that information. They're not going to say, hey, I've got X time and X time available. They're not going to say it. So your closing statement, even though it's not going to be necessarily sales oriented and going to be as hard of an ask for the business, you just need to get when we started this off, what was the goal of every call? To get somebody out, to physically get eyes on the problem. Let the selling start there. Okay. In order for me to, and they're going to say, I've got mold behind a picture. How much is it going to cost me for that? I would love to be able to answer that question, but if I did that, I'd be doing you a disservice. Because in order for us to fully understand the problem, we really need to see it. And I don't want to give you inaccurate information. We are a company of integrity. We are a company that wants to make sure that we have identified everything. So we just need to look at it to give you the best possible information, the most accurate information possible. And I do have these times and these times available, which is better for you. Now, we live life in the whirlwind. So how are you supposed to be able to give this time and this time to a customer whenever people are just running around like chickens with their heads cut off? Communication is the key to the success in this situation. Your communication with your estimation team. And if the estimation team is tied up, call a salesperson to get out there. Let the customer know that they are so important that you're going to drop everything for them and get somebody out there to take a look at it. Guys, it's not rocket science. It's putting the customer first. They chose you. And I don't think that we fully understand the power of that. There are hundreds upon hundreds of restoration companies in the United States that they could choose, but they picked up the phone and they called you. So you need to move heaven and earth to freaking get somebody out there to get eyes on their problem and take care of them the way that they should. This is something Sean and I are incredibly passionate about as a customer experience. I'm going to let Sean talk a little bit about that too, because we talk about this constantly on our podcasts and webinars about how important our customers are to us.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Eddie said, you know, they choose to do business with you. So if you, going back to the outcare, out-educate model, you really have to understand that if you, for 1 second, take your eye off of that prize of truly caring for your customers, you're going to lose a lot of momentum. You're going to lose a lot of respect. And that's really where, when you show that, it's very hard to fake that. It's very hard to kind of eliminate, you know, that perspective. So you really have to, you know, you have to look at them. You have to protect them. You know, people are going to come out of different angles and try to tell them like, oh no, like it could be their insurance company. It could be another restoration company. It could be a major competitor in that market. You have to understand that the more authentic, the more honest, even when it's bad news, how you deliver that. It's very, very important to make sure that you're nourishing your customer. You're taking above and beyond care of them, because the minute you start to slide back on there, somebody's going to look at that opportunity and try to take that relationship away from you or discredit you. I mean, we see this a lot with insurance companies, adjusters, public adjusters, consultants. You know, they're going to come in and say, no, you don't need to pay for all this. It can be done this way. And that's not true. When you're standing on the standards of the IRCRC, OSHA, all the guidelines that are in place to do things correctly, safely, and what the insurance company is responsible to pay for, it really changes that dynamic, and you're not having to fight your way back into that conversation. So you want to be very upfront with your customer when you're going through this process. Make sure you educate what could happen maybe. You know, so they're prepared for it. That way, when it happens, they're like, oh, I see what's going on here. And unfortunately, I'm not going to talk to you anymore, Mr. Insurance Adjuster, because I know what our rights are. I know what our policy says. I know what we're covered for. And based on industry standards, this is the work that we want done. And then as a restoration provider, you can stand the ground to fight that if it comes down to a battle like that for the customer.
Absolutely. So Sean, if you'd do me a favor, if you could put one last poll up, we're going to volunteer this. So, you know, prior to, you know, all the sales acumen that I had, I ran Fortune 50 call centers back in the early 90s. So, you know, if you feel like your admin staff could potentially be lacking and you could be leaving money on the table, if you would like us to do stealth calls to your facility, record those and send you a synopsis of where there could be improvement and where we would be happy to come in and do a 1-hour admin training to be more effective on the phones and increase that conversion rate. Just go ahead, and whenever Sean gets that poll up there, if you would like us to do stealth calls to your facility, just click yes, and we'll do them. We'll send the recordings to you along with a synopsis and show you where missed opportunities were. We'll do that all at no charge for you. And if it ends up being a situation that you would like us to go in and take your administrative staff and say, you know what, could you do the admin training for our staff to make them more effective? We're more than happy to do that. We believe in building people up and leaving people better than the way that we found them. And the way that that's done is through education and empowerment. And Sean and I are huge advocates of that. It is something that we wholeheartedly believe in, that you cannot possibly out educate and out care to the point that it's not effective. So we would be happy to do that. So there it is. All you have to do is just click yes. And I'll reach out to you, let you know kind of what the gist of the stealth call is going to be. And then just at some point, I'll make a couple stealth calls to your facility, record those for you, send them out. Nobody's going to get in trouble. That's not what this is about. It's about identifying areas of opportunity and finding the weak links in your business and improving upon those. So a company is only as good as their weakest link. So if we do have a weak side on the admin, then let's make it better through training, education, motivation, and empowerment. So that is all I have for you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Sean or myself, at Eddie at tier level or Sean at tier level, but we're going to open up the chat box. And if you guys have questions, scenario based, how to overcome certain things, please start responding now and let's address them. I'm going to let Sean watch that because while I'm sharing the screen, I can't see. So,
all right. And like I said, you can put your Q&A in the box or in the chat box over there. So feel free to ask any questions that you might have right now.
My big thing is that I want you guys to talk about, situations that maybe you don't have answers for. Customers may react or act in a certain way. And you're not able to know how to respond to that.
It's a quiet group today, Eddie.
Well, maybe that means we did a good job of educating. So,
we got a new message. Thanks, guys. We can always find ways to improve. Appreciate that, Dylan. That's really good advice.
And if you have best practices that you want to share, don't hesitate to do that.
Yeah, I know some of you said you guys had systems in place. Is there anything that you guys are doing to evaluate that? Are you recording phone calls? Would love to hear some feedback that you guys that are currently doing that. We'd love to hear that. So if you have anything you want to share, we'd be more than happy. And if you feel like you've got a dynamite system in place and you'd love to do a joint host webinar with us in the near future, let us know. We'd be more than happy to, provide that to this community to provide more value for them.
All right. Well, it looks like that we don't have any questions. And, guys, like I said, for all intents and purposes, we'll make sure and get a recording up and send you guys the link for that. And we'll make sure and send you the slide deck as well. If somewhere in the near future you do determine that you would like some administrative training, or if there are topics that you would like to see us address, don't hesitate to shoot us an email. We'll be more than happy to tackle those challenges that you're seeing in the field. I do know that I've got a call with one of our attendees over blended sales. If you find out that you're not being as effective as you can be in the market space because of the COVID pandemic and the face-to-face sales dropping off, by all means, hit us up. We have a blended sales webinar that we would love to share with you. So guys, thank you so much for taking time out of your day today. I know that I always enjoy doing these. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or feedback, don't hesitate to reach out to Sean or myself. So thanks for joining, and we'll see you at the next webinar.
Take care, guys.